Welcome to the Mediate Your Life podcast. I'm your host, John Kinyon. On the show, I guide guests through challenges and conflicts in their personal and work lives, and in their experience of the larger social political world. The Mediate Your Life approach helps people bridge differences and heal divides using principles and processes based in empathic communication, a mediation framework, and mindfulness. Each conversation is a forum for learning and healing, not only for the guests, but also for the podcast listeners. In this episode of the Mediate Your Life podcast, I'm honored to be joined by Ashira Darwish, a Palestinian activist, journalist, and holistic healer. Ashira shares her deeply personal experiences living in Jerusalem and her journey towards healing and liberation. She is featured in the recently released powerful documentary, Where Olive Trees Weep. We explore the immense challenges facing Palestinians today, the weight of intergenerational trauma, and the vital importance of self-care for activists. Using the Mediate Your Life framework, I accompany Ashira through a process of connecting with different parts of herself: rage, guilt, and the need for self-care. This conversation is both heart-wrenching and deeply inspiring. I hope you find this episode as moving as I did. Okay, so I am here with Ashira Darwish, and I feel very privileged, honored to have you on the podcast. You featured in the documentary Where Olive Trees Weep, made by Zaya and Mauricio Benasso, who also created the Science and Non-Duality organization. And that documentary, I watched it a few times, incredibly powerful, and how you were in it was really moving.
Something has to change here. Something has to change here. And I hope I can just be part of that.
So what we're seeing here is that indomitability of the human spirit. Not easy, and it's punished, but it persists.
So grateful to be able to talk to you here. And you also, that got made, for those that didn't see it, got made in 2022, so before October 7th of last year. And lots has happened, of course, since then. So yeah, and you started kind of your activism and social justice work in journalism and TV, and kind of got more and more involved in your activist work and got arrested and all kinds of things. Would you like to share a little bit in your own words, kind of how you want people to know your background a little bit before we get into other things?
So I'm from Jerusalem. My mother is from Jerusalem. My father is from Egypt, Said. And I'm a mother of two beautiful babies, a toddler and a newborn. I'm a healer. I'm a liberation healer. I work with modalities that heal somatically, and they work on occupied bodies and on Black and brown bodies and in continuous trauma. And my whole healing journey is from my experience. So the way that I heal is how I healed myself from paralysis in my neck that was due to an injury from Israeli soldiers in the village of Nabi Saleh, and also from ADHD. I still struggle with it, but I found ways that help support the process and understanding my superpower and using it in a productive manner. And I am the founder of Catharsis Holistic Healing, which is an organization to spread the holistic approach of therapy, indigenous therapy, ancestral therapy that comes from our roots, that works on our bodies. We spread it in Arabic, in Palestine and in the Arab world, and we provide therapy for children, women, and adults in all of Palestine and now abroad in the diaspora.
Yeah. So much trauma to heal, and that part of the world, and of course all over the world with the violence we do to each other as human beings. But you've really experienced that so intimately, and your own healing from it, and how you're helping others heal. It's really very beautiful to me. And so you and I have talked about at some point we'll take something more personal that a conflict as you're experiencing it, maybe an inner conflict as we talked about. We'll kind of get into what we work on that level, and hopefully that you feel nourished and supported, and all the challenges that you face with what you're doing. And your story is really the way it's told in the documentary, and so people can certainly see it there. But anything for this moment and beyond what you've already shared about kind of the work you're doing in the background, but your story of how you got to now and what's happening now in Palestine, and that you want people in this context to hear, just in terms of the journey you've been on and where you are now. So is there anything you feel moved to share right now about that, your story?
Yeah, I wish I didn't get to the place where I am at and having to share this, but all this knowledge came through adversity, came through living under occupation, and it all happened. The film and also everything was pre-October, and what I need people to understand is this has been happening to us all of our lives, and to my mother from all of her life, to my grandmother all of her life. Actually, my grandmother is older than the occupation, and she passed without seeing a liberated Palestine. So my hope is that me and my children will see a free Palestine very soon.
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe my wife Sheena communicated this to you, but our son Kabir, who passed about a year and a half ago, his most passionate cause was liberation for Palestine and the human rights there, and so it's so deep in our family to care about this issue so much, and our grieving at the loss of him, but what he stood for and what he fought for and what you're fighting for. And so it's particularly meaningful to me, to us, that I get to speak with you.
May he rest in peace and power.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so and there's some very, very recent events that are happening. Yeah, is there anything, kind of about what's happening now and how you're coping with what's happening still after all these months, and just the most latest events of just today, yesterday?
It has been insane since the beginning. The beginning started in 1948, but this mass escalation since October has been nothing that we have dreamed possible, and I never expected humanity to get to this point. It's just disturbing on so many levels. Today I saw a friend, a colleague, a journalist, Ismail al-Ghul, blown up to pieces, targeted by Israeli army, and his head had completely perished. There was no head. He was beheaded. And the only thing remaining was his flak jacket. And just seeing that image and seeing so many friends we've lost on this journey, and seeing how they target journalists in the most brutal, inhumane way. Wa'il al-Dahdouh killing his children, killing his family. So many journalists killing our icon, Shireen Abu Aqli, and my teacher. They are... I tell my daughter when we cross checkpoints that they are monsters, and we should never be afraid of monsters, because we have more power in our hearts. But I had never imagined that they would become this monstrous. Like they have become demons. How are human beings capable of this? How are they capable of beheading Al-Alul as a journalist? How are they capable of raping our prisoners with dogs? How are they capable of defending it? Yesterday they were protesting the detention of the soldiers for questioning, the ones who gang raped a Palestinian in State Yemen, torture chambers, concentration camps, we should say. I think for our men, they would prefer death every second to the torture they're being exposed to having to live the rest of their lives after this trauma that they've endured. And it's unbelievable. It's inhumane. It's nothing that I used to wonder so many times, like, how could the Holocaust happen? How could people get to this place of so much rage, so much hate, so much... It's unbelievable. And here it is in front of my eyes. I'm seeing it, and I'm still finding it hard to believe. I'm doing everything in my heart, speaking, talking, traveling from one country to another, from one state to another, just telling people of what is going on so that something can change. But there's something completely wrong on this earth.
Yeah, it's incomprehensible. Like the mind, especially when you're that as close to it as you are, can't comprehend how we can do this to each other, get so far from our basic empathy and care that we can do the most horrendous things to each other as human beings. We're fellow human beings, and we can do this kind of thing to each other.
What kind of level of dehumanization? I even think, okay, they said they indoctrinate them since childhood, but they don't have eyes to see, they don't have minds to think. Mm-hmm. I have faith, and I always used to think, to be a bit skeptical about this concept of the devil. And now I'm like, no, I think there's really a devil, and they're incarnated, and it's working on human beings, because I still wish that there's a devil that's in control of these people, and that you're manipulating them to get to this point of evil, to do these things.
That it's not
rather
really
than
them.
My heart, exactly. I can't comprehend it. I would prefer to think to believe. And sometimes you look at them, you look at Mark Zuckerberg, you look at Netanyahu, you look at their eyes and they're empty. It's as if the soul has been sucked out of their eyes. And they're just not there. It's a wall. It's a brick wall of the nothingness. And if there is such a thing as the devil carnated and doing this work, you can see it through those people and this soulless space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not connected to the soul of our humanity and our shared humanity. There's maybe some force or something that inhabits us in some way, maybe that at least that makes it almost, you can preserve that there's some humanity in there somewhere, but it got taken over. And
exactly.
And
I don't know why we keep doing that. I don't know why I keep trying to find an excuse.
Yeah, probably because you want to have faith in humanity itself, I'm guessing. And yet when you see day after day experiencing it so up close, like so hard to hold on to, that these are still people, like you don't want to, my guess is you don't want to dehumanize them. And yet given what's happening, how do you not numb to like when you see that what gets done and the horrible impact of it, to still try to connect to the human beings there, right? I'm guessing it's just enormously difficult. I realize I don't think I said our son's name before. I want to say his name, Kabir.
Kabir.
Yeah. And Kabir, we've often thought, because he died before October 7th. He died at the end of 2022. Very tragically, very suddenly. And he was part of in way back years ago in college, he was part of the BDS movement, the divestment movement at UC Davis, where he went, and he was one of the student leaders of that. And that was like pretty, kind of cutting edge at that time of that, getting that movement, the beginning of it or early on in it, and how passionate he was. And he got arrested at times and just got into all kinds of trouble because he was such a warrior and he got so angry and so impassioned so often. But I was just thinking, if he had to live through this, since October 7th, I don't know if he could have survived it, really. Like, he had a hard enough time with the injustice in the world, even when this wasn't going on. And we often talk about like how he could have coped. And I wonder how you cope. I mean, the healing work, I'm guessing, is a big part of it. How you heal yourself and support others, it keeps you sane amidst what I could imagine would almost be like driving I imagine Kabir would have been almost driven crazy by this and not being able to make it stop.
Mahi, that's the thing. The worst part is you just try so hard to make it stop. And you do everything you can, but you're not in control. And you don't have that power. And that's, for me, the worst part. But I know that we're making a difference. I know that our voices are being heard. I know that what they want us to do is, after they show us these like images and they kill our friends, they kill our leaders, they kill everyone we know, or torture them and detain them, is they want us to feel weak, alone, isolated. And the one thing that I know very well is that we cannot allow ourselves to fall into that trap. What keeps me strong is being in community. What keeps me strong is having faith that God, the divine source, is also with us. And that after this dark, evil time, that this is just the end of their time, the end of their time of evil. And that after this will be light. And with the liberation of Palestine, we will have the liberation of the natives. We will have the liberation of brown and occupied bodies. We will have justice, freedom, and equality for all. And that we will thrive in a world where this is just not possible. Because the majority of the people, the majority of the world don't want this. They don't want to see it happening. And it's only a select few leaders, the elites, that are doing this to us. And yeah, it's having this faith that, it will end, and this is the end of days for them. And something beautiful is just around the corner. And faith in our humanity, that we will find ways to rebuild after this. And yeah, we will find ways to make a new place for these babies to grow and to live in peace, and to give them a better world, to leave them with a better legacy. Because obviously what has been done so far has failed tremendously.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's faith, and then there's seeing. Like, it sounds like this is as much death and destruction and horror and suffering that you see. You also see a lot of people waking up,
coming together
in ways that maybe has never happened before globally.
Yeah. We see the boycotts working. We know it's working. We see Arab people moving. We see the West waking up, and this veil dropping about this whole white democracy that they've been selling us, and this human rights and the UN and these courts that they have, that they're useless. They're useless, and they're created and only to maintain the occupation, colonization of the not Western world. I'm not going to call them third world, because that's what they like to call us. We are the first world. We are the civilizations, and the barbaric destruction is the one in power and has been in power, trying to teach us under the veil of democracy and human rights. And at the end of the day, I think Gaza just with every explosion exploded all those theories, all those myths about European democracy, American democracy, and it's just for everyone to see that they're just plain liars. And that the people, the natives, are the ones who sing the songs of freedom, justice, and equality. We're the ones who teach, and it's just in a battle to annihilate this power, and we're just fighting back. We're fighting back so that everybody gets liberated, and they're fighting back everywhere here. They're fighting back in the U.S. They're fighting the natives for land back. They're fighting against corporations. The more united we are, the stronger we are. I tell people, if you can't actively do something for Palestine, then move for your neighbor, and that will help us. Move for Congo, move for Yemen. Don't allow a homeless person to pass you in the streets without you stopping and talking to them, because the power of good is in all of us, and all we need to do is strengthen that light and love in our vibration, and not allow them to destroy that, not allow them to capitalize our lives and our minds and our hearts.
Yeah, as you said, there's these different places of war, of atrocities, of terrible violence and suffering, and I've heard many say though, like that what's happening in the Middle East is a kind of a particular place of seeing things that were hidden before, in a way, like you said, the kind of veils dropping away and seeing these systems and structures, and as you just articulated. And
We are the throat chakra of the earth.
right, yeah,
So this is where the throat chakra of earth lies, around the area of the Dead Sea and Jericho.
yeah. So some meaning to so much
Exactly.
suffering. Yeah, and you talked about faith in a spiritual sense too. It's like, obviously there isn't an all powerful being that can just stop all the suffering, and yet there is this reality of love that's so powerful that we can tune into, that feel like it's real, this potential for how much we can love each other, and that there is something bigger than us that is at like the leading edge of our evolution, of who we are in the highest sense. That, and it feels like you know how to tap into that, or you feel the connection to that energy, that divine energy. My mentor Marshall Rosenberg would say, this beloved divine energy we can tap into.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah that I can tap into it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that's part of what keeps you going amidst.
That's what keeps me going. That's also how I heal. That's how I support and heal other people. It's the ability to awaken each person to that power that they have within them, because the whole concept of oneness, the whole concept of being united and our humanity is because it's all in we're all connected through electricity, and electricity runs through all of our bodies and runs through the universe, and the one creator, or the energy, the they, the them, are all connected in that one sphere of energy.
Yeah, right. And we're connected to the whole biosphere, the life of the planet, and beyond. The tremendous power and energy there to connect with.
This is why they try to create such huge explosions, such huge mass disruptions in vibration. And they do that so that they can, because the love is growing stronger and people are waking up, and they need something so strong and destructive in order to take away the love energy and replace it with hate and fear energy so that they can survive. That's what they feed on.
Yeah. So actually there's a transition place here to maybe to be facing, to be kind of a warrior of a love, but being in this struggle that's so
hard.
Incredibly daunting, and having young children to take care of at the same time. It's
the biggest lesson, because all my anger, I'm like, I want to go out and destroy the world.
Yeah, I bet just the rage. I
want to be able to, like, that's I think I have kids so that I can control this rage, right? And not allowed to take over, because I'm pretty sure if I was living in Palestine and this happened with me without kids, I would either be in prison or I would be dead. I wouldn't be able to survive this. And the only reason why I'm surviving is because I have those two. And I have to be here, and I have to figure out how to navigate and do the things which is more effective, and be present, but there's so much rage.
Yeah, I bet.
It's a struggle. It's a struggle to keep the love. It's a struggle, and I had this struggle all my life of how do you not sink into the destructive hate, and it's all right to be angry. It's all right to have this rage, because this is just not normal. But I've been in places in my life where the hate was eating up my brain. And it occupied such a big space in the brain and the heart and the body that the only way I can heal was to release it and to forgive, because it was eating me alive. But it's so hard right now.
Yeah.
I tap, I try to do all the practices, but at the same time, I'm like, I just want to be able to go and and destroy.
Yeah, to protect what life and what's precious to, and to,
Yeah, but sometimes you have to destroy in order to protect.
yeah. So yeah, this actually is a segue to how we could do some work with you and what's going on in you using the approach I have.
Anger right now.
Anger.
There's so much rage.
Yeah, let's start with that. So the framework I use is a certain kind of communication process. More generally, call it empathic communication. Comes out of body work called nonviolent communication. And then, but it's very much about being able to work with
I have
rage.
an allergy to the word nonviolent.
Yeah. So that, the way I think of that, it's more of what we talked about, of that spirit of the heart, and how to respond to the violence of the world. I think it really depends on the situation, but still I think it's right, wanting to not get eaten up by the rage and the hatred, and become that which
I hate the most.
We don't want to become that, and yet how to work with the legitimacy of that rage given what's happening, right? And the way I like to think of the approach is it's a mediation approach where that third side is the part of us that's that love, that universal love, that highest kind of wisdom. And from that place, we can bring empathy and healing to different parts of ourself and others. And so I'd like to just, and these maps, I call them, to navigate these different aspects of conflict. So I think you and I talked before about maybe just different parts of yourself, but there's also in this moment, like the rage about what you see happening in the world. So we could also start with just the rage and see where that goes. You want to do that?
Yeah, that sounds like a good place.
Yeah, let's, since that's so present right now, maybe just the dropping into your body, if I can accompany you there, because that often helps if you're not alone with these intense emotions. Where do you feel that in your body, the rage right now? You do a lot of healing work and body work. Where do you feel it right now?
Here.
In your jaw?
I'm clenching my jaws every night.
Yeah.
Neck, my shoulders.
Yeah. And does it feel okay kind of together to just sort of be with all, like not to dampen it down at all, just to like be with it with attention, kind of a warm presence, to be with what's in your jaw and your throat and your shoulders and your kind of whole body that's tensing, to just kind of that part of you that can bring that loving kind of energy, soothing kind of calming energy to the rage. Not to calm it down, but just to be with it, to really connect with it, kind of breathing into it and honoring it, honoring that it's there for a good reason. If you want to go to that reason of what need or needs is that rage meeting, trying to meet, standing for, fighting for. If you speak for the rage, right, or from the rage, what is it fighting for?
No, justice, freedom,
justice.
Retribution. Part of it's also revenge.
And does retribution, revenge maybe meet something deeper, like empathy, to really have people doing these things really get the impact, really feel what it's like to be on the receiving end of this?
Yeah,
the real deep empathy and like that it matters.
Yep.
That there could be an actual like awakening of really seeing and feeling. So the rage is about that, wanting that so much, wanting
to make it stop,
wanting safety,
freedom.
So I think we're like kind of talking to the rage now, the rage that's in you, and we're like connecting with it and empathizing in a way that's like really honoring it and feeling it and being with it. And so just, as you do that, maybe notice, is there more that part of you wants to say?
Like a volcano.
Yeah. So there's an image of the volcano erupting with that much energy.
Yeah, it's too
Yeah.
white again, using color.
Yeah. And that energy that wants to protect and create safety and wants there to be empathy for this harm that's being done, horrendous harm, wanting it to stop. What do you feel in your body now as you kind of connect with this part of you?
It's like a wave,
Mm.
like allowing it to be there, but at the same time wanting it to flood.
Mm-hmm. To flood in order to create these things of safety and peace and justice.
Yeah, just to cleanse all the dark energy, like the
To
anger.
wash away all this harmful energy, this hurting, destroying, suffering, creating suffering energy, and maybe like dominating, this energy that wants to dominate and wanting to wash that all away. To get to the place you talked about before, yeah? That maybe what it might look like someday when that isn't there.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that energy that just wants to create that desperately. So maybe just check again this part of you, if it feels heard, yeah, just like really acknowledge the rage, the needs that this part of you is fighting for and standing for, and can you feel me with you in that, so you're not just alone with it, but like we're together, kind of being with it. And is there anything else that part of you wants to say right now?
Let me go or something. Let it go.
Something about letting go?
Yeah.
Yeah, say more.
Like it's a heavy load.
Is there another part of you, maybe another voice that is saying, yeah, I really get it. I get the rage. I get just the need to create something so much more beautiful on this planet, and like the cost on you to hold this volcanic intensity. Is that right? Does it feel a little bit like maybe a slightly different voice that is sort of saying, is it possible to let go some of the heavy burden of it, but still stay very connected to the energy of creating something so much better, so much like for humanity? So yeah, let's maybe just check and see if it's all right with the rage part of you to shift maybe over to this other voice and see, but check again if the rage part wants to say more or ready to kind of listen in a little more to this other voice.
Not ready to listen in.
Yeah, so that one is saying something about letting go or somehow easing this weight on you, this way that you're holding this. What else does that part want to say? Or feeling any other different kind of feelings that come with this voice, like any other part of your body or emotions that you feel?
My lungs. There's also a lot of sadness and grief.
Yeah, we carry that a lot in our chest.
Yeah, which doesn't feel like I'm letting it all out.
I guess there's a huge floodwaters of that as well. Grief and pain, sadness.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is more like in the lungs, the chest area, maybe the heart that aches with this grief. But there's something about the letting go too. Is that about caring for your body, trying to hold this intensity?
Yeah, I think so. Offloading the heavy part on the physical, like on the body itself.
Yeah. Say more about that last part, just so you can understand it better.
Like the burden of carrying it is heavy on me physically.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the need for
Yeah, I can feel
care,
like my shoulders as well.
shoulders to yeah. The weight that can feel holding there, yeah. That you're playing this role that is carrying a lot, yeah. And how to care for your being, your body, your heart, your soul, to also care for you. And as you hold all this, as you try to channel this incredible energy to change things. Any images that go with that second part of you?
Well, no.
Okay. That second voice, the needs, for kind of self-care in a way. Is that a good way to say it? Or what?
Yeah, self-care.
Self-care. Okay.
There's a lot of guilt related to like self-caring in the middle of this. Like, it's not your time now. Like,
yeah, and is that coming from the rage part, or is that another, even like a third part that is saying, yeah, but what about all the suffering of everyone else?
yeah, like when self-care comes up, that comes up. Like, it's shwatik. It's not your time. Yeah, you need to like sit and take care of yourself now. You
need to be helping others.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's another voice. Third voice says it's not your time now because there's too many others that are suffering and too much else to do, and there isn't time to care for yourself. Something like that.
Yeah.
You can do that maybe later, but right now, that's this other voice saying, that just really focused on the suffering of other Palestinians and maybe the world in general that's trying to wake up to from all this horror.
As if I'll be taking time
from the work of helping, supporting, trying to create something better. Okay. Can we check with this the second voice, the self-care part? If there's anything else that part wants to say, or can we? It's okay to focus on this third voice.
Yeah, that I need to do some self-care. That the guilt is stopping me.
Yeah.
And I know well that if I don't self-care, I won't be able to give completely and fully. But
still difficult to do, even though it kind of intellectually you can know it or think it, but it's different to actually allow it. Yeah. So from this kind of the part of you that can empathize with all the parts, like, right, this, I think of the awareness, the consciousness of us that can direct this empathic presence in these different ways, right? To the rage, to the self-care, to the guilt, just like the part of you that can hold all of it and give empathy to all the parts of you. Yeah. So, and I think if the guilt part has empathy, then maybe, and we can try to create some connection between these three aspects of you. So you're like kind of working together and not maybe at odds inside.
Yeah.
Sound good?
That would be nice.
So maybe let's do maybe a little more with the guilt part. And how do you feel that in your body when you're focused on that aspect of you? What is there a different part of your body that you notice
when I'm focused on the three of them coming together?
No, more just the guilt one. And is that the feeling of the guilt, and is there a way that you experience that inside? Fit like sensations that go with that emotion of the guilt.
It's also in the head.
No, just kind of generally in your head.
Yeah. A lot of questioning and second guessing as well.
Yeah, a lot of thoughts, a lot of thinking.
Yeah, overthinking.
and probably I imagine just images of all the suffering everywhere and all the like you talked about, right? The way people are being killed and what's happening with the bombs and the destruction and the horror of it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that part of you really wants to help and support and do whatever you can to contribute. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's so painful to see that, and you want to give everything you have to give to help.
Bring it to an end faster.
So how does the guilt feeling right now, just getting listened to? We're just listening and kind of connecting to that part of you, just hearing its message and its cares and concerns and what it wants and needs. And how is that part doing right now?
Needs support.
Needs support. Yeah. Right. Because it can feel in some ways, I imagine, like the aloneness of not enough support given the magnitude of what you're facing. So if that part, you may just check, if that part of you feels heard enough, I want to invite, I'll talk directly to guilt, the guilt part of Ashira. If you're willing to empathize with self-care part of Ashira, and I'm not asking you to agree with any particular ways of doing things, just to hear, just to let the self-care know you're hearing what that part is wanting and feeling. And so it takes a little bit of mental gymnastic, but if you kind of imagine you're speaking from the part of you that gets guilty, and you're just saying, okay, self-care, I hear that this is what's going on for you.
That's interesting. It came out like, I want to hear you, but I'm not going to.
Okay. But that's all right, because that probably means the guilt part needs a little more empathy in a way, more reassurance that really getting the importance of contributing to the community, to the movement, to the people that are so in need of this liberation from the harm, the oppression. So let's just check. Yeah, is there anything else then guilt part wants empathy for? Just kind of want acknowledgement that, yeah, when you contemplate the self-care, when you try to listen to the self-care, does anything else come up?
A lot of the guilt, it's about surviving, and so just that part wants to prove that there is guilt so that I look good in a way, like that I have the guilt.
So is it something about surviving as well as, is that connected? That like that being seen that you do have guilt, that you in a sense that you care for the community and what others are maybe worse off even than what you've experienced, and wanting that to be known, wanting like that you care that much and you're that committed and you're that dedicated, and you just don't want that to be missed if you're taking care of yourself also.
Yeah.
Something connected to survival in that, like if people don't know that about you, that feels scary for your survival. Is that right?
Yeah, and it feels scary. How am I going to protect myself?
Protect yourself from how you might get judged or seen?
Yeah.
So a way to do that is to constantly be contributing and helping and supporting and doing everything you possibly can, even if you're exhausting yourself.
Yeah.
There's something that feels safer that way. It feels more like protected, and your survival is better like that way from this part of you.
Yeah.
Right? So let's check with guilt. Are we getting it? How's that feel to be understood at that level?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's about surviving.
Survival. Yeah. Goes very, very deep. So that
Same.
guilt is no wonder the guilt is there, because it's connected to something so deep as survival, and how you're viewed by the whole community that you are so connected to and so caring for, and your own sense of wanting to know you're helping with the survival of all of you.
Yeah.
Right? So just you're contributing to survival for all of you. And the guilt is about that, wanting to stay connected to that, wanting to keep doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. From what happened a little bit ago, my sense that guilt part, it's hard to empathize with self-care because of that. It's so strong. It's like this deep survival impulse around that the guilt comes up around. Yeah. So maybe we could just, if guilt is willing, maybe kind of asking if it's okay with this, that we just go back to self-care and we just listen a little more. Like, it doesn't have to say anything back, but it can maybe just listen while we're empathizing again with the part of you that really needs to also take care of yourself. Like, you get exhausted, you get depleted, and you can't care for others and the community as well if you get too depleted and you can't take enough care of yourself, right? So if it's okay, let's just tune into that part of you, that second voice, that second part, and just see what's there now. What does that part want to say as it's hearing this conversation with guilt?
That it's also about survival. Without it, I won't survive.
Yeah, if you don't care for yourself enough, you're not going to survive. And then you can't help anymore.
I know this, but
yeah, but this is trying to go even deeper below just the mind, but into your body knowing it, your body feeling. And what we're going to do in a little bit, I'll invite, is these two parts of you trying to connect a little more, because they, in some ways, they operate independently and they get into fights with each other, right? Into this internal warfare sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this process of kind of mediating inside through empathy and compassion for the voices inside, that they can maybe come together. So they're collaborating and they're mutually understanding and valuing each other and working together instead of kind of at odds with each other. So yeah, we'll just see what we can do for today. It might be a bigger process, but just even a little bit of that can maybe create some relief inside from this like sense of conflict inside about it, right? So maybe just going back to the self-care part of you, and you're saying, yeah, if you don't get enough care, if Ashira doesn't get enough rest and kind of nurturance and just being able to feel healthy, you don't survive, or you can't contribute very well, right? So how's that part of you doing hearing that? Is there more that part wants to say? No? Okay. So now maybe I'll ask that part, see if it's a little easier for the self-care. Now that you've gotten some empathy, the self-care in you, are you able to empathize with guilt? So it's not agreeing with guilt. You don't have to agree that you want to feel guilty, but just like hearing what's behind the guilt and letting the guilt part know what it's serving. That part of you is serving something really important, a different kind of set of needs, even though the same needs are there, but it's in a different way. So maybe from the self-care part of you, out loud, if you're willing, just saying what you're hearing the guilt part of you talking about. What's important to the guilt part?
I can help more if I do take care of myself.
Yeah, that's what you want. You want guilt to hear that, right? It's almost like you're speaking to guilt and saying, can you hear me? Can you hear that if I feel taken care of enough and it's okay to be taken care of, then we Ashira, have so much more energy and power to give, right? And it's like, guilt, can you hear that? Can you take that in? Even if you don't you have to even agree to it. Can you just hear it? Just to kind of get what self-care is saying about that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then also maybe try giving some empathy to guilt, which could sound like something. So from the voice of self-care, saying, so if I'll just take on your voice for a second, just to model it a little bit. If I'm your voice of self-care, talking to guilt, I might say, yeah, guilt, I want you to hear kind of what I was saying about, I also need to survive. And I can't help if we're not surviving, but I want to also really try to listen to you. And it sounds like that's really hard for you, guilt, because you're so focused on surviving through helping others and caring for the community and meeting the needs that are so enormous in this world of incredible violence. And you want to focus on that, and you're scared. Are you scared, guilt, that if we focus on ourselves, somehow people won't understand that, they'll judge us, or we won't do enough to contribute? And you're scared about that.
Scared about that, and also, yeah.
No, stay with it. So maybe you take on that voice of guilt, and I'll keep being the voice of your self-care, and we'll just kind of have a conversation where we try to listen to each other.
Yeah,
So.
guilt is saying it's how we make sure that you're doing the right thing. I don't know.
Yeah, you're trying to make sure we do the right thing, meaning how others could see the good work that we're doing, and how we can feel good about the work we're doing.
There's a lot of fear of judgment.
Yeah. So you're trying to protect us from that judgment and survive. Good judgment can mean, right, in our deepest kind of tribal roots, if the community judges us, that's a really scary thing. And so you want to protect us from judgment, and to just know that we're doing everything we can to help, and we're staying connected to the belonging of the community and the care of others, the being seen. Yeah. So you get really scared about that. You want me self-care to know that. So when I want to do self-care, you want me to really get that fear comes up so strong.
Yeah. And it stops.
Yeah, then you don't want to go along with what I'm asking for. So I get it. I really get it. And that you're trying to
push it to the limit.
And then you push harder and harder and harder. And I get it. I get why. Because both how others might, see what we're doing, but also we want to know we're doing as much as we can. So I get that there's a lot of fear about that not doing enough, and not being understood for what we need also. I really get that. It makes so much sense to me, and I really appreciate you for caring for us that way, taking care of Ashira, of us, by how others might react and judge, and how we might judge ourselves just for how much we want to do to help. So I really get that, and I really appreciate that a lot. And I want to be heard too about the role I have for Ashira, but you might not be ready to hear that. So let me just make sure, guilt, if you feel understood by me right now, and do you feel seen by me and appreciated by me?
Yeah.
Yeah? Because I really do. Yeah. I really honestly do appreciate, even though I don't like feeling the guilt, that doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel good to my wanting to have the self-care, to have that guilt flooding our system. I really get what it's about, and I really appreciate it. That you're trying to help our survival that way, and the survival of our people, and all the people of the world that are suffering under oppression. And I want to, if you're ready, I want to just see if you can hear me. You don't have to agree with me. I'm not asking to do anything other than just listen and hear what I'm saying. I also want to I, as this part of Ashira that has taken on this role of caring for us, the way we care for the baby and the kids, just in that same way that we take care of ourselves, enough nourishment, enough nurturance, enough rest and well-being, just because we also, right, we want to have that well-being just like we want that well-being for everybody else. We want it to be okay that we have it. And we can give so much more if we're nurtured ourselves. And we start to get too depleted otherwise, and we can't give enough. And we might even not survive if we push ourselves far enough. So we might get some illness. Something bad might happen just because we haven't taken care enough of it. So can you let me know what you're hearing there? Just what you're hearing, Guilt.
It's helpful for the survival and necessary so that I can keep going and protecting Ashira.
Exactly. Yeah. And I want you to, if you're willing to feel that, feel this need. I want you to feel that it's like important, the need for us to be cared for us to, for Ashira to be nurtured, to feel enough rest that we can function well, that we can be happy and joyful, even though there's so much suffering in this horrible, terrible world.
I'm hearing that it's helpful and needed.
For us too, yeah. And to give it to others as much as possible. Really with you on that. Don't want to take anything away from that. Just want to make sure we're getting nurtured at the same time.
Yeah.
So maybe is there, to kind of finish up for this moment, is there anything you would ask of me about how this part of Ashira that has this job of self-care for us, how I could do it in a way that would work for you, Guilt? How could we work together so we're really supporting each other as we support the world?
To make sure that it doesn't take away from other things.
Okay. So if we kind of plan it out a little bit so that there's that gives a little more reassurance that there's also a way to make sure you're factoring in other things you want to be doing. But if you plan it, then it could be okay with you, yeah? That we could plan ways of doing some self-care that you would support. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we could check with the rest of Ashira about that. And is there anything else? Maybe now I'll just Ashira, the Ashira that is kind of able to see all three parts. And can you hear any other ideas? And maybe just imagining all three of them in a way working together. The rage that wants to kind of really fight the injustice and I'm guessing very aligned with the guilt part, but what would be a way that they could work together? Can you even imagine? They're like really, but especially with self-care. How can self-care have a kind of equal voice in all this? Do you have any concrete images or ideas or what requests of one another that they can make of one another?
Allowing for that to happen and planning for it so that it's the function, because otherwise I won't be able to direct to have the rage or to have the space of time. I shouldn't wait until I'm exhausted or burned out to take the breaks that I need to so that I can keep going.
Right. It's such a common thing to get burnt out and then there's a lot you can't do. Right? Okay. So planning is one possibility. And how about maybe just be able to kind of holding this ability in you from what we did today. Yeah. Just keep listening to these three voices and requests of each other that might kind of more ideas might keep bubbling up. That communicating between the parts and working together and just kind of imagining that and feeling that in your body and your mind. And so that you're together inside. Yeah. So that's something you can just do kind of ongoingly, kind of keep tuning in to. And maybe, I know, I thought of a request. If I was the self-care, I would say, is there any possibility we don't have to feel quite so much guilt? Like, I get what it's there for. Can we kind of ease off on the guilt, some knowing that it's about survival and judgment and wanting to protect ourselves and take care of the community? Like, is it, my request might be, can we kind of dial down the intensity of the guilt and allow space to hear ideas of self-care, and not that it's not in competition with guilt and rage. It's just wanting to work together, and not to suffer with that guilt, right? Not to feel extra burdened with the guilt, but more just, let me know if like I'm missing something, right?
More ease.
But a little softer, a little gentler, a little more like, that's important. I'm on it. I get it. I'm there. But I also just want a little more like, can we also focus that care towards ourselves too? Right. That might be a bit of a request. Can we just kind of soften that any inner suffering around that? Because we can work together. We don't have to do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything else? How are you, kind of Ashira, the whole Ashira that's holding all of you? How are you doing right now? I know you're tired and probably all this.
Yeah, it's part of me saying like self-care, you need to go to sleep
to sleep now, yeah. So I can see. But maybe you seem relaxed though. You seem like there's maybe something relaxing in you.
Yeah, definitely.
Your face looks more relaxed and your voice sounds relaxed, and so I hope, that you can use this to get a nice, good night's sleep and continue to come back to this, like just listening to these three parts of you, and that they can all work together.
Knowing they can work together, exactly. Knowing that they can work together, not having this fight.
And they can support each other. They can support one another, right? Just like you want to support in the outer world, you can support in the inner world. Good. Well, let's complete here. I'm so grateful you were willing to do this with me, and I'm so grateful for all the work you're doing in the world, for kind of all of us to try to liberate from these systems and this way we dehumanize, and we get so disconnected from our empathy and care for each other as humans, and just thank you for all you're doing for that. And I hope you get to do lots for your self-care as well around it.
Thank you for that. That was much needed.
Yeah, I think we talked about some ways that you do a lot of these interviews that are about giving to others, but exactly. part of this was to also see how we could give to you and all this, what you carry inside, and you allowed that to happen. That took some courage, I bet, to be willing to let that happen today, and to some trust of me. So I'm very appreciative and very moved by just who you are as a person in the world, and I feel so grateful just to know you and to have had this conversation. So I hope we get to connect more.
Thank you. It is good to receive. I keep saying community is what we need, and to stand with each other, to strengthen ourselves right now in this time, so that we can keep holding on and so that we can keep doing the good work. We need to have community that supports each other so that we don't lose our sanity, and so that we can do the self-caring and people can care for each other through this so that we can survive it.
Exactly.
The image that was given to them was that we're sitting there, with the guns in our schools waiting for the Israelis to come. No, Habibi. We're sitting in our homes waiting for the guns to come and attack us while we're in school. But if we had the chance, we'd be in theater, we'd be playing, we'd be doing these things, and we would be living just like a normal life. But they couldn't see us.
Thank you for listening to today's conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to subscribe to the Mediate Your Life podcast. and follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram at John Kinyon. You can also download the Mediate Your Life app to practice these principles in your own life. With love, empathy, and care, I'm John Kinyon. Thank you for listening.